Hello, welcome to PM Express Personality Friday. My guest is a retired Justice of the Supreme Court of Ghana and a former sole Commissioner of the Electoral Commission of Ghana. He was a professor of the legislative drafting at the University of West Indies and a former director of the Commonwealth Secretariat Scheme for Legislative Draftsmen for West, East, Southern and Central Africa, including the Caribbean. He is in the person of Justice VCRAC Crabbe, who is Ghana's sole statute law revision commissioner and co-chair of the Coalition for Domestic and Election Observers, CODEO. It's great to have you, sir, on PM Express Personality Profile.
Thank you.
Your name, VCRAC, very long. Vincent, Cyril, Richard, Arthur, Charles Crabbe. Did your father give you all that name?
Yes, my father did. Yes.
Right. I mean, how have you managed to live with such a long name, considering the achievements that you've chalked in life as a fine lawyer, really?
Well, I think the younger days, people normally refer to me as Charles.
As Charles.
Or Charlie Crabbe. But, when I was entering the Inns of Court, my brother said, look, put everything down, which I did.
And you have no regrets that you did?
No, it's my name. I'm stuck with it.
Did the name come with a certain prestige? I mean, I get the feeling that if you train as a lawyer in England, and I mean, it's prestigious to have a longer name, or it doesn't matter?
No, I don't think so. Your name has nothing to do with it. It's what you do as a lawyer and your success that matters so much, not your name.
So, I mean, how would you describe yourself now that you are a retired Supreme Court Justice?
Yes, so retired, but I'm not tired because I'm still in the public service.
Considering the work you have done for the public service and for Ghana, how would you describe yourself?
Well, I describe myself first and foremost as a citizen of Ghana who have tried this little bit to work for his country. I think that's the best
all
I
you
can do.
Little bit, but your achievements are not little. I mean, you were the first commissioner of the Electoral Commission, right?
Yes, I actually established the Electoral Commission.
When you look back at the Electoral Commission today and the commission you started as a sole commissioner, what are your observations and comments about how it has gone in the light of the current petition really before the Supreme Court?
I'm very glad that we have kept the institution, the Electoral Commission, as an institution and part of the paraphernalia of democracy in this country. In every democratic system, we have elections. But I would always stress that a successful election does not necessarily denote a successful democracy. It's but one part of the process. Democracy is something which is bigger than elections. But in elections, we elect the people who we think should govern us.
That's a simple word you have to say, right?
Quite, yes.
I mean, if you look at the current petition that is before the Supreme Court, and as a Supreme Court Justice yourself, I mean, people use all sorts of descriptions. They say this is a test of our democracy, and they say this is groundbreaking. And I'm told that it's not the first time that an election result has been challenged in Ghana.
That is correct. When Mr. Edward Akufo-Addo was Chief Justice, then he was elected President of Ghana. The election was challenged by the late Mr. Joe Appiah, and I had to give evidence in that case. So this actually is not the first time that an election petition is being challenged at the presidential level. It happened before. My view is that it's very good for a democracy that the elections, 2012 election, presidential election, is being challenged. We in Kudeo, over the long period, each time there had been an election since 2000, we've always issued a report and draw attention to some of the things which we think should be corrected. And to some extent, most of the predictions we made have come true. And the present action is showing perhaps some of the areas where we need to look again.
Let's focus a little bit on your person, your personal life, and your rise from childhood to the choice of becoming a lawyer and then rising to the stage where you have gotten to. Growing up, I mean, you were born in Usher Town, you told me.
Born in Usher Town.
In 1923,
I went to
that's a long
the
time.
Boys Junior School at Jamestown, Sempe. Then from there I went to senior school, Kimbu. From there I went to the Accra Academy, where I did my Cambridge School certificate. At our time, we did the same examinations practically with the English students. So if you got 5 credits, you got exemption from London matriculation, and you could go straight to university, which we did in those days. I must say that I haven't been an angel as a child. I have been in every trouble.
You are the troublemaker,
Stubborn,
Vincent Charles.
troublemaker. And whenever there is a fight, I will join in, irrespective of who was fighting. The problem was that I was rather very small, and people will see this, for example, the teacher coming, but because I'm engrossed in fighting, I kept on fighting. And then I'm caught in the midst of it. I remember at the Academy, in our class, there was something which was there was going to be a football match between Fancy Pim School and the Academy, where you've got the Cambridge School now. Behind it, that used to be the park.
I see.
Where we were holding even international football games between the Gold Coast and Nigeria. And one class had to send in chairs, and our class had to bring the chairs back to the school. We had in our class 2 boys. They are called Footer. And their father had a horse and cat. So we decided that we would contribute a penny each so that the chairs would be brought back to school by horse and cat.
Rather than you carrying them.
Quite. For which we were punished before the whole school.
Oh dear. And what were your punishments?
I'm afraid if that had happened today, people would see all sorts.
You were whipped in
you had to receive it at your back.
Oh dear. 6
strokes each.
Right in front of everyone.
The whole school.
The Fansman boys might have been laughing at you all. I mean, considering, were there rivalry between Accra Academy boys and Fansman boys?
It's what you call a healthy rivalry between the secondary schools. The teachers were first-class teachers. I'm always emphasizing that. In all the secondary schools, the teachers were first-class teachers. I would also say that in the elementary and primary schools, our teachers were first-class teachers. At Standard 7 level, Mr. C.T. Nyland, who was our teacher, made us learn by heart Lays of Ancient Rome, 71 verses, and you had to repeat everything. We topped that up with Grace Elegy in the Country Churchyard, 32 verses.
You virtually memorized all these.
You had to, because you had the cane. And he would start from the middle of a verse, because if he starts from the beginning, you might get it up. So you start from the beginning, and you had to repeat it. early morning at the senior school, we stood back to back and front to front. And we had what you call mental arithmetic, 2 plus 2 minus 7 times 24, and you have to give the answer. If you didn't, you had the case.
Learning then and learning now, I mean, what's the big difference in learning then and now? Considering that the standards of our education system, many people worry that it's sinking. What was the difference?
Perhaps it's probably in the motivation. Most of my colleagues from the primary school went to university. They occupied very good positions later in the public service. So it was the motivation of the teachers who were dedicated to what they were doing.
You think that is lost
Probably
today?
Well, I'm not going to school today, so I can't really show the difference.
Yeah.
But for my teachers, I would always thank them for what they did for us.
Right. So tell me, I mean, where did your ambition for law begin to shape?
Actually, because there had been lawyers in my family.
Your father was?
My father was registrar, chief registrar of the Supreme Court.
I see.
At the time he died, the most senior African in the judicial service. My cousin Andrew went to Oxford and read law at Inner Temple. My own elder brother also read law at Middle Temple. The former Chief Justice also read law. So my intention originally was to read medicine, to study medicine and become a doctor, because I thought there were so many lawyers in the family. So I had to, after Accra Academy, I had to go to Udumasi Secondary School, which is now called Presec, to do intermediate science prelim, preparatory to come into Achimota, which at that time you could do your first 2 years of medical examination.
I see.
And then you went to Edinburgh. I was supposed to attend an interview at Achimota, but I didn't get the telegram, so I missed being a doctor. I had to work at the police headquarters for about 4 years or so.
What were you? Or what you
I was a second division clerk. At that time, you had civilians in the police force.
And this was right after your
secondary
school at Accra Academy,
yes.
where the now O-level, GCE O-level, right? Is that the
I don't know the distinction now, but at our time you had junior Cambridge and senior Cambridge.
So this was after junior Cambridge,
yes.
or after senior Cambridge?
After senior Cambridge.
So
you couldn't have been accepted into the public service at that time if you didn't have senior Cambridge.
So that was the only position which was open for your kind of educational background, or what? I mean,
well, you could enter into commerce, but at that time, the public service had the attraction to quite a lot of young people coming in, and in those days, I think quite the cream of our society, one way or the other, went to the public service. Eventually, they left and went into other fields.
And so whilst you were still in the police as a civilian clerk,
yes,
you still had the opportunity to continue studying.
Well, while I was there, I read for the Intermediate B of London University.
And that's privately? And then, you didn't have to enroll in any school? You studied on your own?
I did it privately. There used to be a school in Oxford. It's called Wolsey Hall. And you could enter, you don't go there, but it's a correspondence college.
I see.
And they send you, you took your subject, they send you weekly questions. You answered, went to your tutor in England, he marked them and gave them back to you. And then at the appropriate time, you sat your exam.
It's very interesting. I mean, you were born in 1923, and so from then through, you witnessed it all. Gold Coast, how Gold Coast shaped up to become Ghana. You lived through it all. I mean, in those times, did you think that if, for example, Ghana was still under British colonial rule, would have been different?
Every child grows up. And if you were under colonial tutelage, sooner or later, you have to grow up. And sooner or later, we had to shed that colonial status and become our own. It's absolutely essential because it's part of human nature to grow up. We've all grown up. You have grown up, I've grown up. So has everybody else. And so will Ghana as a country grow up.
So you feel that the decision to tear away from British colonial rule was a good thing? You might have witnessed it, right?
Well, you see, there are so many aspects of the colonial system which was not good. There were so many aspects of the colonial system which were very good. Can I give you my own personal experience?
Yes.
I sat the bar final in 1954 with a settled gentleman called Anger. We sat the examination in the same room. We were called the following year. We arrived in the Gold Coast, but because he was white, he was Crown Counsel. Because I was black, I was Assistant Crown Counsel. 3 years difference. And yet we had sat the same examinations. That was colonial policy. And
That
people don't seem to realize that.
That was discriminatory.
Well, I wouldn't call it discrimination, but
That
that was the
stifled
policy.
the abilities and capabilities of black
so
people.
when sometimes you hear people talking about imperialism and colonialism, and you ask yourself, what do these people know about imperialism and colonialism? Because some of us lived through it. We saw the vast disparity between us and the whites, even though you attend the same schools and colleges with them. I'm not the only one. Or people who went from the Gold Coast, and not only from the Gold Coast, but from all the British colonies. When you went back, there was that distinction of being a white who got a higher status than you got. They had a better pay than you had. If I remember rightly, it was when Mr. Akwaje became Attorney General that he said, no, it was wrong. At least the basic salary should be saved. And he fought, and we had the same basic salary with the whites. But before, there was a vast difference.
Tell us about your time in England. I don't know whether then you had to go by air or by ship to London and then to Cambridge. And how did you travel then?
You went from Takoradi by boat, used to be called the mail boat. From Accra to Sierra Leone, Freetown, that's 4 days. From Freetown to Madeira Islands, another 4 days. From the Madeira and Las Palmas, actually, to Liverpool, another 4 days.
So Liverpool was the port.
So you spent 12 days on the sea.
Wow.
4 days Accra to Takoradi to Freetown. 4 days Freetown to Las Palmas. 4 days Freetown to Liverpool. Then you took the train from Lime Street Station to Euston Station in London.
Euston Station.
In London, yeah.
Wow. So I'm just trying to imagine you as a young Ghanaian from Accra Academy, and you've worked a while, you've sat your exams, and you're going to England to study. How was the reaction from your family and yourself when you were going? Was this like an adventure for you, which you were hoping to return?
I had the advantage of having people from my family
who had taken that journey.
So it was, you had all the advice that was necessary. I remember my brother Sasi telling me that, look, you're black, but you don't have to carry it on your shoulders when you go. And you will find that the people you're going to meet are as much as human beings as yourself. And I went through it. We sat in the same classes with them. Some of them were better than we were. We were also better than some of them. So that was that.
I'm concerned because now, if you look at modern day England, there is a lot of shifts in the cultural systems, accepting black people, accepting other people of other races and cultures. Discrimination, it still exists. Racial discrimination still exists in England. Did you face that kind of discrimination?
Again, I was fortunate. Before I went to England, I was a member of the British Council. And I informed them I was going to England. They took my particulars and everything. When I arrived at Liverpool, 2 people from the British Council came to meet me. They took all my luggage, they did everything, and took me to lunch. From lunch, they took me to Lime Street Station and put me on the train. When I got to Euston, 2 people from the British Council came and met me.
To receive
They
you.
did everything, received me, and took me to Balmoral Hostel. So that was my introduction
To England.
to England. And that set my mindset. And I lived in that sort of atmosphere all my student days. I would get an invitation to go and spend a weekend with the British family. I would accept and I would go. So on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday we go to church, Sunday evening I come back. I used to spend my holidays, if I didn't do student work, in a place called Mould in North Wales.
Mould.
Yes, Mould in North Wales. Reverend Fred.
North Wales.
Yes.
North Wales is Swansea area, or
No, Swansea is down.
Aberystwyth
This is quite north.
area.
It's quite north. It's a small country town called Mould.
Mould.
Yes, and I used to have my holidays with a Methodist priest and his wife.
I see.
In London, I occasionally went to the house of Dr. Harper in Watford, and it went on like that.
I see.
Occasionally, you were asked.
And these were people who had links to Ghana, or they were family, or
I met a certain gentleman. It was a solicitor, actually, Mr. Harris, whose wife was the daughter of a Presbyterian priest who had worked at Abetifi
okay.
in the Gold Coast here. And so we had that sort of relationship. There were quite a number of people who had been in the colonial service, especially the Gold Coast, who were very, very willing to entertain you. Some of them, you met them before you went to England. Once you left the boat, you never saw them again. There used to be a Mr. Chapman, I think, and the colonial secretary. He comes from a very good home. When he knows you're going to England, he will give you his mother's address.
I see.
And you will get a letter from the mother saying, oh, come to tea, and you go to tea. And sometimes they ask you rather very interesting questions. Part of the education we had...
Interesting questions like...
well, I'm coming to it.
Okay.
Part of our education as belonging to the British Commonwealth of Nations was to learn a lot about Britain and British affairs. There was a time when I could recite all the kings and queens of England. But one day I said to myself, of what use is it to me when I can't recite the names and periods of Ashanti Hennes or even the Kanchi Chiefs.
That's true.
So I stopped. But it was the sort of education which is don't always do this, don't do that. But as you went along, you realized there are certain things you mustn't do, and you did not do. And I thought that was the best part of education. And you learn a lot mixing with people. I remember staying with Dr. Harper at Watford. I think my first night there, whatever I ate, I left some on my plate. So the wife was worried. Sunday after church, Dr. Harper said, let's go for a walk in the woods, which we did. As we were walking, then he said, look, Charles, my wife is rather worried whether we were giving you the right food, because you didn't seem to eat all the food we were giving you. And I laughed, and he said, what's it about? So I said, look, where I come from, you're a glutton if you ate and you didn't leave anything on your plate. Then it was his turn to laugh. So he said, so all the time You thought we were gluttons. I said, I thought so.
Well,
Interestingly enough, he mentioned it to one Methodist priest. I didn't know about this. But I have gone to a church service in Westminster Hall, and to my surprise, that story was made the theme of the minister's sermon for the day. How people come from different cultures. How certain things you do might seem wonderful to you, but in one culture it's quite a different thing. I was surprised. But these are the things.
Well, you're watching PM Express Personality Profile, and my guest is Justice VCRAC Crabbe. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back, and he will talk us through more of his life and his achievement up to the level where he has reached now. Stay with us.